what is the cause of that explosion? Was it accidental?
I don't really believe into the conspiracy theory, nor do I believe in exceptional coincidences.
Hi everyone, I'm Dana Lewis, and welcome to this special edition of Backstory, Beirut in Crisis.
The death toll has risen overnight in that massive explosion in Beirut. The death toll has climbed.
That death toll, though, is going to increase in the coming hours and days. Lebanese security officials say that blast was triggered by explosive material that was stored in a warehouse in the port.
Much of Beirut is shattered this morning by one of the most powerful peacetime explosions ever.
It's like an earthquake. It was like a nuclear bomb. I couldn't even take my breath.
As a reporter, I've been to Lebanon. There is always, it seems, some national meltdown or political gridlock. This is something else. A massive explosion in Beirut shattered the city. A blast so intense, it was felt 150 miles away in Cyprus. 135 dead, 5,000 injured, 300,000 displaced from their homes. First, it was a fire in the port at around 5:54 p.m. Then 14 minutes later, initial reports say 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that had been stupidly stored there detonated. The big blast makes the Beirut event one of the most powerful industrial explosions on record. In this backstory, we take you to Beirut and talk to the former foreign minister. But first, here is a friend who is also a part-time producer and full-time businessman who is trying to survive, and he's taking time to help others. All right, joining me now from Beirut is Dany Khoury, who is a businessman and somebody I've known for a long time, and he's helped journalists in Lebanon, and he's a good friend. And Dany, how are you doing?
Hi, Dana. How are you? I'm good. I'm good so far. We survived this one.
How close did it come to you?
Well, Dana, as you know, I'm in the bar business. So I was actually at one bar that is about 2 kilometers away from the blast, but we own another bar that was just like 300 meters away from the blast, and that was deadly. Luckily, none of our staff died, but only injuries. But we lost a lot of friends in that area. It's an area full of bars and restaurants, and it's very vibrant, full of tourists as well. But the only good thing that I could say about this blast that it was the COVID-19 had a bit of restrictions about bars. They were not supposed to open, only restaurants and restaurant bars that could open. So luckily, the bar visitors were not there. Usually they come early for happy hours, and otherwise it would have been a massacre. It was still a massacre, but it was like 170 people died. This is so sad, but otherwise it would have been much more than that.
This is on Germaisi Street.
It's the stretch of Gemaisi and Mar Mikhail. As you know, that the port is stretched along that area towards the seaside. So Gemaisi and Mar Mikhail is like one long street. Actually, they're connected to each other. So I was reading today surveys that there were about 280 restaurants and bars in that area that completely destroyed, like a total loss.
I mean, there are hundreds of, I love that city. It's beautiful. And you and I have been on Gemaisi together, and we've eaten there together. And I love Beirut. It's a fantastic city. But there are hundreds of buildings that are gutted by this, and some of them are going to fall down. I mean, the damage it's almost too difficult to describe to people, right?
Well, Dana, there are about maybe like 20,000 buildings that were like partially destroyed. Maybe a few thousands that completely demolished, like grounded, leveled. A lot of like the new high rise that were built there. They're all like modern buildings with like full of glass fronts, and they're like lofts, kind of apartments. Those were the buildings where a lot of people actually died over there because of the size of the blast was like humongous. Like I still, every time I go there and I look at the rubble, I am shocked again and again, and every day I go there and like I'm still shocked. I cannot still imagine it in my head.
Danny,
So
you've been running a soup kitchen for people. You've been doing free food, have you?
Well, it's exactly. I started a new conceptual store that's a bit far off that's the place where I was actually. So we only lost the glass door over there. So after making a phone call to the bar that I own, and then making sure that the staff were okay, called a few friends. Phone calls were like really hard to get, hard to connect because of they were like heavy calling, like a lot. Everybody was calling everybody. So like there was like it was cutting off most of the time. So the only thing I could think about was to actually do something and try to help. The only thing crossed my mind is like, since I have like a food store, why not cooking? So I called all the staff after they were like, I sent them home. I called them back to come back, and then we started cooking. We started to like in my opinion, I didn't know the size of the blast or the number of casualties or the misplaced and everybody. So I thought of making, I don't know, 50, 60 meals, whatever I'm able to do. So we end up doing 110 the first day, second day 380. Now we reach 1,060 meals. Basically, most of the food is going to the Lebanese food bank and the volunteers on the ground and the displaced people. That some people, like, their houses are still there, but they have no doors, no windows, so they cannot leave their house to actually buy groceries or cook, because they probably, like, I don't know, they lost the kitchen or something. So what we are doing now, not just me, a lot of people doing that also. So
Danny,
we are trying
if anybody wanted to listening to this, wanted to support you, is there a way they can do that?
Well, I'm not an NGO. I'm an individual place. Me and my brother, we own this shop, so we're doing it on an individual basis. So like, we're not accepting money, because like, I don't want to be taking money and putting it in my account and then mess up with this.
People can get to the Red Cross or whatever charity.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to do is to actually, we ask for goods. We ask for food, for dry food, for rice, meat, chicken, vegetables, whatever you can give us, oil, butter, cheese, whatever people give us, we cook them. We cook different meals, sometimes a day, like 7-8 meals a day, just to reach the maximum number of meals per day.
Danny, who do you think is responsible for this? I mean, they said it was a bunch of fertilizer that was stored. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you. What do people say? What do people say in Beirut? I mean, what do they believe?
Dana, you are familiar with the Middle East. You've been coming here for the past, I don't know, 14, 15 years now. You know how politics here in Lebanon, how corruption is. So for me, I blame the government, first of all. I blame everyone in the government, because everyone knew that there was a nuclear bomb laying there at the harbor, and no one have actually blinked an eye, So there was no warning. After the first blast, they could have warned everyone, because the first blast, it took them half an hour, maybe even more. And then the second one exploded and destroyed the city. They could at least have sent a warning to people to leave that area, knowing what they were hiding over there.
Was there indeed that much time between that initial fire and then the second?
Yeah, the actual fire started like, I don't know, I guess around 30 minutes or even more maybe. And then there was a small blast, and then there was the second blast. That actually, the fire started earlier, because firemen went there. They were trying to put off the fire, and this is when the second explosion happened, and then killed almost everyone and destroyed half of the city.
So you don't think somebody set this off? You think that?
Well, I am sure it's a man-made. It's not just because every military expert that actually watched the videos and discussed that over TV, and they were brought here for investigation, not official investigations, but like a lot of newspapers and journalists and TVs, they brought experts to understand what is the nature of this explosion. So everyone was saying that this it's definitely a man-made, because like there is no way on earth that this kind of ammonium nitrate can explode by itself, and neither can explode by a fire next to it, because you cannot put it on. So there has to be some kind of a trigger. There has to be a trigger so you can explode that thing. A lot of things. A lot of people. There's a lot of theories. Some say maybe it was Israel that threw a bomb over there. Maybe two bombs. Some say that it could be a torpedo from underwater. Some could say like it's a sabotage. Somebody went there and placed the bomb, and so. But the weird thing about it is that thing, that ship had 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate laying there at the port. So every military expert that have seen such a thing or that study such a case been saying that the size of explosion of Beirut is not more than 600, not more than 500 tons of ammonium nitrate. So there's another 2,300 at least, 2,300 tons that are missing. So in this case, I don't know, like you can point finger at any directions. It could be the ISIS, it could be the Syrian opposition, it could be the Syrian regime, it could be Hezbollah, it could be anybody.
You probably need an independent investigation in there, but I think the government hasn't allowed that, right?
We definitely need that because as you know, we have no more trust in that government that is handling the investigation
Dany,
today.
where does everybody go from now? I mean, I assume people are just kind of stumbling forward day by day, trying to repair what they have left, just in terms of even just trying to get glass back into apartments and have places to live and stay. I mean, where do you go from here?
Dana, it's not easy. Maybe you've seen footage, maybe you've seen the radiance of the explosion, maybe you have an idea about the size of destruction, but no, you don't. Actually, you have to be here and see with your own eyes the size of destruction. We apparently need I don't know, 50, 100 type of large ships full of glass to cover all the windows and doors that were broken. It's like 15 kilometers away from a radius of the blast that you see glasses were shattered all over.
It's just unfathomable. It's just hard to imagine how much damage. You can see in the photographs and some of the video, you see some areas, but you can't understand.
Yeah, I know. Like I saw footages before I saw the actual place, before I went there, and I was like, okay, we know, like we've lived that. I lived the Civil War. It was like, just like any other bomb, like a big bomb, not big deal. But no, when I went there, like it's massive. It's like, it's incredible. You cannot see the end of it. You cannot see the end of destruction. Like you are at one point where everything is leveled to the ground, and then but you cannot see how far it is. It's too far, man. It's like a desert. The hole that the explosion made on the enforced concrete at the port, at the harbor, was actually 42 meters deep.
Incredible.
That's like enforced concrete that was broken and destroyed into pieces, and then down in the water, and you know that water can take a hit. So it was like 42 meters deep. That's crazy. This is like, we were nuked, man. We were nuked. Literally, we were nuked.
Dany,
no radiation.
I mean, Beirut and Lebanon was already reeling from COVID-19, right? The economy was already collapsing.
COVID-19. It was COVID-19, and it was also the economic crisis that we've been living on since last August. Actually, it's been like a year now, where in October 17, everybody went down the street because of the exchange rate of the dollar. It was going too high, and there was like a lack of dollars. Like if you need to buy things, we actually import everything. So we need to pay for that goods that we are importing, and we were missing the dollars. So a lot of protests started going on the 17th of October last year because of the economy situation, because of the lack of the dollars, because of the unstable politics. So the Lebanese people were like really suffering. It's been over 2 years, but it started to show about 17th of October where like everybody went down.
Like Beirut and Lebanon is not going to recover unless there's an international effort to come in there and help finance reconstruction.
I've been like, I always thought about that, and we just don't need international aid for reconstruction. We just need an international aid to make at least the reform for this government, for this system that we're living in. Cut down the hands of thieves and corrupted politicians and parties here in Lebanon. And we have hope. We're hardworking people. We know how to manage things. We're all over the world. I know that all Lebanese around the world would come back and build Lebanon again and again and again. But this time, we will not build for politicians that will destroy after that.
Dany, thank you for connecting, and my heart goes out to everybody in Lebanon and in Beirut.
Take care, my friend.
All right, Gebran Bassil is the former foreign minister of Lebanon and speaks to us from Beirut. Gebran, first of all, how are you? Were you affected by this blast yourself?
Everybody was affected in Lebanon. Thank you for receiving me. I know it's getting great attention everywhere because this is a blast that is disastrous to the country. Everybody has somebody who was hurt or a place that was demolished. This is beyond imagination what has happened.
It is beyond imagination when I look at the video and the photographs, because I've been to Beirut and I know Gramezi Street and I know that area, and I'm just shocked.
Yeah, and on top that, it adds to the many crises that we are going through. On top also of COVID-19, we have a deep financial crisis along with our usual political problems. So the country is really going through a very bad period where our main focus now is how to save it, because a country like Lebanon cannot go into chaos. This will be disastrous not only to Lebanon, it will be disastrous to the region and to the West. And everybody should work together on forbidding this.
You were a member of the government. You were still a member of parliament. The government was forced to resign. From all reports, there's political fragmentation. There are corruption issues, sectarian politics, mismanagement in government. The people are furious in the street. I have to say, and I don't mean to make light of it in any way, but it seems like the situation is normal in Lebanon because you often seem to be rolling from one crisis to another.
This is our history. The problem is people, especially those who are in power, are used to face problems and to go from a crisis to another. But this is not normal for the normal people, because at the end of the day, they get tired and they leave. They don't find jobs. They lack to share or to experience their human values, sometimes their freedom, their dignity. They feel it's touched and they can leave. So no, it's not normal for a small country like ours to take the load of all the problems of the region. To mention to you, one of them is having 200 refugees and displaced per square kilometer over the last 60 years for the Palestinians and 9-10 years for the Syrians.
How many Syrian refugees are you housing now? Is it still 1 million?
It was above 1 million. It was 1.5 million. We don't know the real figures now because during the last crisis, many had to leave. Then they stopped because of Corona. So I don't have at least the last figures, but I guess it's still above 1 million. But imagine 1 million over 10,000 square kilometers. So take it to a country like the US, having 100 per square kilometer, and take the figures. You will see if you can cater for 200 million, let's say, another nationality coming all of a sudden to your country.
The Hezbollah are blamed right now for a lot of the problems in the country, the economic mismanagement of the country. Lebanon was already on its knees, as you mentioned, financially before this happened. All of it aggravated by COVID-19. Would you honestly go back in a coalition with Iran and Syria's puppets?
No, actually everybody is in coalition in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They are part of the parliament and they are part of every government since years. And the national unity governments, when we say a national unity government in Lebanon, it means that it includes everybody. So this is a matter also of our internal security, whether we go into accelerating our internal problems and we go into internal fights or no. I would say that Hezbollah is responsible and everybody in Lebanon is responsible for this level of corruption. Nobody, I believe, is helping in fighting corruption really, and nobody is really helping in following the path of reforms. Yes, this is where we, as Free Patriotic Movement, we blame everybody, including Hezbollah.
But you were in the coalition with them.
Yes.
So
yes,
you are, aren't you, by cooperating with that party, with that group, with an organization that the Americans still consider a terrorist organization, are you not encouraging this state within a state?
In Lebanon, Hezbollah are elected. They have the biggest portion of voters in Lebanon. So the problem, if anybody has a problem with Hezbollah, it's not with a small number of people, a group of people. It is a whole population.
Are they changing? Are they changing? Because you talk about people, I don't mean to interrupt, but you talk about people being disillusioned right now with corruption and some of the problems. Is there another faction emerging, not within the Hezbollah, but maybe apart from the Hezbollah, where people say, okay, we don't want these parties that are aligned with Syria or Iran. We want Lebanese only parties that are going to try to get our economy and our lives back together.
The problem in Lebanon is a sectarian country, and we have what we call the consensual democracy. So everybody has to be on board, and every confession has a veto right. And Hezbollah and Amal, which we call the duo Shia, the Shia duo, they represent the big majority of the Shias, above 90%. So people still follow them. And excluding them is excluding a whole community. And this does not work in our consensual democracy, in our confessional system. So again, as I told you, it's not isolating or putting apart a small group of people. It is a whole community that is part of your society and that is embedded everywhere. So you cannot treat the matter of Hezbollah in Lebanon like being a terrorist organization, because they are not considered as such, because they are resistance against Israel. And second, I told you, you cannot accuse all the Shias of Lebanon of being terrorists and outlaws and put them outside the government and the parliament where they are elected.
Is that a mistake by the United States then, to kind of treat the Hezbollah as a terrorist organization and not understand fully the sectarian politics within Lebanon?
This is a major difference that we have with the United States, because we believe that the policy of isolation that the US adopted before with many countries did not help. with Cuba, with North Korea, with Iran, with Iraq when you had the dual isolation policy. Yeah. I believe engaging with people and with countries, for a big country like the US believing in democracy and the acceptance of the other, I think it's more useful, and it gave better results before. Isolation can create more extremism and more fighting, which is not helpful for our region.
What is the risk if countries that have a little more economic muscle, like Britain, like France, like Germany, like America, if they don't help Lebanon right now, what is the risk? The risk to peace, the risk to security in that region?
The risk is what we have always warned about, that you have a chaotic situation in Lebanon, which will encourage people to go to extremism. To extremists and terrorists will take Lebanon as a hub, unfortunately, where immigrants will not be able to stay, the displaced and the refugees, and there will be an overflow from Lebanon towards the region. The same that happened from Syria towards Europe, and look how Europe were unable to sustain the number of Syrians that a small country like Lebanon sustained for over 9 years now. The whole continent of Europe was not able to absorb the number of Syrians that Lebanon absorbed. So imagine more and more will come. This will create a reaction from the rightists in Europe refusing, and this will create more division within the Western societies also. Lebanon is a model of tolerance. When you break it and you make it fall, what will emerge from this? An anti-model, which is extremism.
Let me come back to where we started, because I know you have limited time, and that is, first of all, do you believe what is the cause of that explosion? Was it accidental?
I cannot frankly tell before the investigation ends, but I don't really believe into the conspiracy theory, nor do I believe in exceptional coincidences that came all together. The way the political results of that blast also are intriguing, and as if something was really prepared before, as if this is a way to have a different engagement with Lebanon. I hope it will be a chance to open up to Lebanon again and to help the country to go over this crisis, because I think it will be a very big mistake to let Lebanon fall, because this is a place that is open, to the west and to the east, and it can be bridging for peace, for stability in the region, and it can be really a good backyard for Europe, and the same for the Mediterranean. So whatever is the cause of that blast.
You just said two things to me, and I found them contradictory, and maybe because you haven't decided in your own mind, but just to be clear, you don't feel it was an act of terror, but at the same time, you can't discount that maybe it was. Is that essentially what you said?
Somehow. Because the evidence until now, nothing shows that there is something coming from outside. It can be a sabotage, but there should be something from outside that triggered it. At the same time, the political results are as if, you needed that blast to start a certain process. Well, what I'm trying to say is that process can take us to put more pressure on Lebanon and make it fall, or it can take us to another path that opens up to Lebanon and gives a chance for the country to breathe.
Gebran, when you've toured, no doubt. I know you're in Beirut. You've probably been going out to these neighborhoods and these buildings, and I've heard there are hundreds of buildings. I mean, is there a price tag on reconstruction, repair? What does the international community need to do to help Beirut right now?
I think the best idea is for each country willing to help to take on its own the reconstruction of a building, of a street, or of a whole neighborhood. Because Lebanon, and especially Beirut, has an antique architecture that is inherited from the French mandate and from Western architecture, and we should preserve it. And
I think talking about architecture is boring, but when you go to Beirut, you really understand love for architecture, because you drive through those streets and you look at those buildings and they're beautiful, and it is a lovely, lovely city.
Yeah, it is the mixture of architecture resembles to the mixture of civilization, able to cohabitate and to live the experience of diversity,
including the bullet marks on the facades of buildings. Huh?
Exactly, new futuristic architecture alongside with an old house, old architecture, all together. They give Beirut its beauty, and this is what we should preserve. Beirut, it's not only architecture; it is an ancient school for democracy, for human rights. It was the first democracy in the East, and it should be preserved as a pioneer of human values in that part of the region where extremism is fighting and confronting moderation. And this is a big question for the West. What do you want? You want the Middle East a place to export for you terrorists, or to export for you, like Lebanese are integrated in your societies, to export to you brains and good people willing to add to your society? This is the big question. And this is where you cannot consider that whatever happens in Lebanon is irrelevant to your societies. We are calling for peace. We are calling to preserve Lebanon as a model of tolerance. Don't turn it into another Libya, into another Syria, into another Iraq. We went through 15 years of war. We had enough, and time is now for reconstruction, for prosperity. All we need is pressure to go through reforms, not pressure to break the Lebanese model.
Gebran, Bassil, you're very generous with your time, and it's so important to talk to you, and good luck to you and to all my friends in Beirut, and we love the city. We wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's this edition of Backstory Podcast. If you care about Beirut, you can donate through the Red Cross and many other frontline charities like the UN. They could use your help. Please subscribe to Backstory and share wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on every major podcast platform, from Apple to Stitcher to Overcast. There's just too many to mention. I also post the video portions of my interviews on my YouTube channel, so you can watch them there as well. I'm Dana Lewis. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.